Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Democratic Party's program. I don't know whether this will be the last. We'll see what happens. And I'm very happy to have actually you're outgoing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Outgoing president of the Foreign Correspondents Club to come and talk about the state of affairs at the FCC, as well as press freedom, freedom of expression. So thank you very much, Lee.
Thank you, Emily. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Well, this time, the last president who came was Keith Richburg, and it was a full house because of some controversy at that time when the FCC decided to cancel the Human Rights Award. And that was controversy both in Hong Kong and elsewhere. And Keith, I think he came twice to talk about it. But now we're in calmer waters, isn't it? And recently, the FCC did a survey, isn't it, on freedom of expression or press freedom in Hong Kong. And it took quite a long time to do it because it seems that the response was so slow and many people were not responding. And you thought that, well, if you just have a couple of dozen replies, it's not very helpful. So actually, what happened? Can you tell us?
Yeah, so we did just in the last few weeks publish the FCC's third press freedom survey. This is the third we've done since the imposition of the national security law, and the recent one was the first that we had conducted since Article 23 legislation came in last year as well. It did take us a while to get the data that we needed. Nobody checks their emails anymore, including journalists. So it took us a period of time to get the data. In the end, we got 69 respondents. We got pilloried somewhat in some corners of the press for this being non-representative. However, we have never claimed that our surveys are representative of Hong Kong journalism as a whole. We claim that our survey is representative of the FCC correspondent and journalist membership. We have about 334 correspondent and journalist members, about 69 people filling it in. It's about 21% of our journalists filled it in. So we think it's a representative sample of our journalist members.
300 and how many?
We have 334 correspondent and journalist category members, yeah.
Is that a new low? Or has the number dropped very much in the last few years?
You know what, Emily?
After the NSL, the National Security Law.
You know what, Emily? I'm going to surprise you.
What?
Numbers of correspondent and journalist members has gone up 6.5% year on year.
Really?
Yeah. So we are seeing, media closures, international and local, right? Reporters Without Borders estimated that 900 journalism jobs have gone since the imposition of the national security law. So I'm not saying there are more journalists in Hong Kong. What I'm saying is the journalists who are in Hong Kong increasingly see the value of an FCC membership. Oh, so really? Our number of correspondent and journalist numbers has actually gone up. It's a small increase, it's a humble increase, but it's certainly not flatlining and it's certainly not going down.
And you said that this survey is the third or the fourth survey that
This is the third survey to my knowledge, yeah. And
so before the NSL, FCC did not bother to do a survey on press freedom. So is it that at that time you think, oh, there's no problem at all, why bother? And now because of the national security law, you suddenly, not you of course, the board decided, well, we better find out what members think. Is that right?
No, I can't speak to the board's decision and thinking before I was a member of the governance of the club. I'm not sure why there wasn't a press freedom survey. There were things that we did do before the NSL that we don't do now that I'm sure we'll get into, Emily. But this, I can't really speak to that. But I can say that this is the third survey we've done and the second during my 2-year presidency, which is about to come to an end.
So tell us, what have you found? Are the members very optimistic?
Well, I wouldn't use that word. So
are they very pessimistic?
It's a mixed bag at best. So I'm terrible with numbers, so I've jotted a few of them down here. So of about 21% of our C&J members filled in this survey, as I mentioned, which we believe to be representative of our membership of correspondent and journalist members as a whole. 62% said they thought the working environment has changed for the worse. 62% said the working environment had changed for the worse since the last survey, which was 18 months prior. And 18 months ago, we had a similar number, 60-something%. Thought it deteriorated since the last one. And I think some of the other numbers explain as to the reason why. 64% said that sources are less willing to be quoted. 65% admitted to doing some self-censorship in the prior 18 months. And a staggering 90% say they are concerned about digital or physical surveillance of them or their work.
Oh, really? So it's quite alarming.
Yeah, it doesn't paint an optimistic picture.
But so I guess the FCC cannot help them, knowing they have all these concerns.
I wouldn't say that at all. I mean, so I'm coming to the end of a 2 years term as president.
Actually,
right?
he will step down next Thursday, isn't it?
After the AGM. And you know, when I ran 2 years ago for the first 1 year term, I pledged to lead with pragmatism. Right? My goal was to fulfill our mission as a press club. Our mission, it's stated there on our website, is to defend press freedom at home and around the region. It is to support journalists, and it's to facilitate journalism of the highest standard. And we have, in the last couple of years, found new ways to fulfill that mission. My objective has always been, we need to be able to fulfill that mission. If we cannot do that, then we should not be a going concern. We should be able to fulfill that mission, but we need to do it in a way that means that we can fulfill that mission tomorrow. It doesn't help anyone that we decide to die on some hill and take some glorious stance and make global headlines, and you know, it creates this huge firestorm around the world. Who ultimately is the victor in that? Maybe it would be pretty good for my public profile, for my career, but the Hong Kong journalism, I don't think, would benefit from that. And Hong Kong as a whole, I don't think, would benefit from that. So we found a new way to continue to fulfill our mission.
How?
In the last 2 years, we've issued 21 press freedom statements.
Yes.
This was something we were being hammered with when I took over the press freedom statements. This last 2 years, we've issued 21 statements, 14 on Hong Kong. The 2 years prior, we'd issued around 14 statements total, 10 concerning Hong Kong. So the last 2 years, our volume of our press freedom statements has increased. But there's also any number of ways that we fulfill that mission, right? So there's the defending press freedom side, of course. There's also the supporting journalists and facilitating high-quality ethical journalism. There's any number of ways that we've really ramped up in how we do that. Over the last couple of years, we've done more than a dozen workshops for early career journalists, covering everything from investigative reporting to AI, to video journalism, to sports journalism. We've also, last year, we brought back our journalism conference after a 5-year hiatus. The FCC didn't do the journalism conference for 5 years. We brought it back last year. We've just done a second successful edition a few weeks ago on World Press Freedom Day. We also have our Claire Hollingworth Fellowship to support early career journalists. There's any number of things that we continue to do to support journalists and journalism in Hong Kong. Press freedom is a really important part of that, but in addition, there are other things. So in answer to your question, I think there's still so much that we can do and we have been doing to support journalists.
What's the impact of all those press releases that you've made? I mean, we've done. What impact? Has it really achieved anything?
It's an excellent question. One of the differences is we committed 2 years ago to following up. If we believe something is important enough for us to put out a statement, we're not just going to put out our statement and then retire back to the bar for a gin and tonic. You know, we're going to follow up. We're going to reach out to the relevant authority, whomever that may be. It could be government, it could be a newsroom, whatever it is. And we have continued to do that. And we've had conversations, back-channel conversations, on issues that we bring up, absolutely. So
what has that achieved?
Well, Emily, you know what? I can't give you anything concrete and say that this statement has led to that. But I think it's important that we continue to speak out. We continue to express the view of correspondents, of journalists, foreign journalists in Hong Kong. I think that intrinsically has a value. Even if we can't point this result came from this statement, I think it's important for us to be representing journalists and to be speaking out on behalf of the FCC.
And you have not got a government official to come and speak at the FCC in the last 2 years, isn't it? Hong Kong government official.
Hong Kong government official, not yet.
Not yet.
I'm hopeful. We've invited representatives of the Hong Kong government to speak, and I would reiterate that invitation here now on your show. We would love to hear from secretaries representing the Hong Kong government. The one prerequisite we would have is no questions are vetted. We would ask what we wanted, and we would open things up to the floor to our members and their guests afterwards as well. But we haven't had anyone from the Hong Kong government. We have had a representative from...
Have you tried?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have had a representative from the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Yeah, I was there.
You were there?
Yeah.
You were there, Emily. Huang Jingwu, who is a spokesperson for the Commissioner of the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He gave his talk on the 2 sessions. You stood up and asked the first question. So we are committed to doing that, of having speakers from across the political spectrum. The last 2 years, we had the spokesperson from MOFA. As I mentioned, we had people like Kishore Mahbubani, and then we also had people like Stephen Roach. And we've also had big names in journalism, Joe Kahn, the editor of the New York Times. And then we've had panels on the biggest issues facing the city. So the last couple of years of my presidency, we've had panels on the district council reforms. We had a panel, which you were on, on the anniversary of the national security law. And last year we had a panel on during the public consultation period of Article 23, where we had Regina Ip speaking, going against Ronson Chan, who at the time was chair of HKJA, Simon Young, a law professor. To my knowledge, that was the only public event on Article 23 in Hong Kong. Of course, there were closed-door talks for consuls general, for chambers of commerce, but that was the only public live stream where we spoke about those issues. And that is the value of the FCC in a modern Hong Kong. That plurality, that being an independent space for conversations like that to happen. Right? We're in a context where I think more than 60 civic society organizations have shut down since the onset of the national security law. Right? And so we want to hold that space where those critical thinking, independent thought can take place. And to be able to continue to do that, we need to ensure that we are operating within the laws of the land, because otherwise we just have to go completely offshore, which is what nobody wants.
Are you people under, not a lot, but some kind of pressure? People monitoring you all the time saying, hey, Lee, you do this, you mustn't do that. I guess that means yes.
It means that I've made a few friends over the last couple of years. But we have conversations that are frank and honest, and we come at it from a place of mutual respect. And I always make the same argument, which is, look, the FCC should not be a controversial organization. We are an apolitical group. We're not yellow, we're not blue. We are a journalist club, and we stand for one issue, and that is press freedom. That's guaranteed in the basic law. It's guaranteed in Article 4 of the National Security Law, right? We stand for one thing, and that's press freedom. And really, we know that Hong Kong's prosperity depends on a couple of really key things. It depends on its rule of law and the belief in its rule of law. And Hong Kong's future prosperity depends also on the free flow of people, of capital, and information. And a free and fair press is vital for that free flow of information. So whenever I'm making, overtures, it's always that, look, this is what makes Hong Kong special. The success and the longevity of the FCC is inexorably tied to the future of press freedom. The future of press freedom is inexorably tied, I think, to the future prosperity of Hong Kong.
Do you think?
Therefore, the future prosperity of the FCC is inexorably linked to the future of Hong Kong, and all the members want the best for all three.
Well, there isn't that much prosperity now because people are very concerned about the economy. And also, do you think we have a free press here? Not to mention the recent controversy about journalists receiving investigation by the Inland Revenue Department and other things. I mean, the Journalists Association have called a number of press conferences over the months about the problems that they face. But do you think we have a free press in Hong Kong?
HKJA are doing an amazing job, and Selina Cheng is doing an incredible job on that front.
And the chair lost her job with the Wall Street Journal.
Indeed.
In that court case, we're still waiting for that to happen. Do we still have a free press here?
Emily, a free press is not binary. It's not you have a free press or you don't have a free press.
So
right?
what do we have?
There have been, and our survey tells us this, and anecdotally we know this, there have been significant restrictions on the freedom of the press in the last 5 years. I'm not telling you anything new there, anything that we don't know, right? There's any number of different threats to press freedom. So our role at the FCC is to do what Maria Ressa calls hold the line, right? So there is a reduced area for space for press freedom, but that doesn't mean that we then just put down tools and roll over. We continue to hold that space that we still have. We hold the line because if you then cede that, then you don't get it back, right? And so that is what our objective is through the areas that I mentioned. We're supporting journalists through training, through conferences, through the press freedom statements, and really just ensuring that we are monitoring this. Because you know what? There may be less press freedom now than there was 5 years ago, but Hong Kong is still the best place to cover mainland China, aside from mainland China itself. Right? The New York Times, Joe Kahn, the executive editor, was on our stage last year. The New York Times, he told me, has 2 reporters in the mainland right now to cover China, which is obviously just ludicrously under-resourced because they can't get the visas. And so they have a lot of their reporters in Hong Kong covering mainland China.
Some can't get visas here either, isn't it?
And there's the freedom of the press to do that. And so just a final point on press freedom. While it has been restricted, Hong Kong is still the Asia headquarters of AFP, of CNN, of Bloomberg, and so on. So kind of a macro view, looking at some of our neighbors, there's a lot of press freedom in Hong Kong compared to the region. That is not to say that I'm some defender of the status quo, but just taking a macro view. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. With regards to your question, you follow up about visas, we've issued a number of statements in the last year or so about visa denials. So there was journalist Hayes Fan, Louise Delmotte of AP, and so on. We're also hearing, in addition to the publicized cases of visa denials, we're also hearing more and more at Press Freedom Committee of journalists experiencing more delays in their visa application process, and journalists experiencing a greater degree of scrutiny as a part of their application. Many questions coming back asking for a breakdown of all articles published in the last couple of years for every byline that they've done. So there is an issue around visas, which is one of several issues that is a threat to press freedom and something that we monitor. I'm sure there's others we'll get into as well.
And you help them, huh? You raise it with because it actually is quite difficult if they deny the visa. What can they do? They just go away?
Well, we like I said, we raise these issues with the relevant departments. And so if it's someone being turned around the border, we raise it with the immigration department. 9 times out of 10 departments will give you the boilerplate. We don't comment on individual cases, but that doesn't mean that we will not speak out about these issues and we will not try to seek these dialogues in kind of representing these issues.
It is very, very tragic that, you compare Hong Kong with other places because the situation in many places getting worse and worse. So if we compare, I like to compare ourselves with Ukraine or with Gaza. I think we are not that bad. There are no bombs being dropped around us and no kids being starved to death. But it is a really terrible world, isn't it? We can't see a whole sea of press freedom everywhere. Even if you look at Asia, and
even if you look at some bastions of the press freedom traditionally,
across
the Pacific,
so it's very sad, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I wish I had a more wittier, more intelligent answer to that, but yeah, we are seeing kind of withdrawals of press freedom around the world.
Yeah, very sad, and Hong Kong's ranking kept falling, isn't it? According to the one by the Reporters Without Borders. I think at one stage we were number 20-something or 30, and now we're 145, close to North Korea, just a bit ahead of China.
I think back in the day, in the noughties, Hong Kong was in the top 10. Hong
that
Kong
right?
was, yeah, I believe so, was above like most like advanced European democracies, right? It's now 140. Mainland China is 178.
We're racing to the bottom together.
So race to the bottom. The US is 57, just after Sierra Leone. Make of that what you will.
They are also racing to, they should be plummeting, considering the problems journalists and others have there.
Yeah, and just the news yesterday about the new Trump order mandating that Harvard cannot accept international students. Like we are seeing a world increasingly moving towards isolationism.
Yeah.
And that is not good for, I don't think it's good for the US, I don't think it's good for anyone. Did you see HKUST's response yesterday? Very, very smart. HKUST, Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, put out a statement saying, we welcome all international students at Harvard to transfer to HKUST. I think that's what Hong Kong institutions, organizations, companies should be leaning into, is that kind of international outreach that's always made Hong Kong very, very special. Because all of the huge fundamental shifts that are happening in geopolitics that you've just been describing do present opportunities for Hong Kong if they are handled correctly. And I think Hong Kong should lean into that.
If we can be free and be safe, of course we are, as I said, we're better than Gaza. I don't know whether we're better than the USA in terms of freedom and personal safety, but those are the things that we want. And I don't know whether you saw this survey done by the the Swedish Chamber of Commerce, and they published it two days ago. And they asked them about their concerns, and they are still concerned about the political development here and the possible negative impact on the business environment. So these are the people who are concerned, and of course you don't see much reporting on it because this sort of news is not the news that many editors welcome. But still, you talk to the Swedish business people, they are concerned, and they are also concerned about freedom of expression, press freedom, and also independence of the judiciary.
Absolutely.
And their impact on doing business.
100%. I mean, I think a huge red line that the international business community would be looking at is, is the changes that have happened in Hong Kong society over the last 5 years. Is commercial law affected in any way? Property law, and that would be the game changer, right? Absolutely. And is there going to be a further restriction of information? We're all aware of that tiny storm in a teacup a few months ago where there was some errant reporting around the Great Firewall kind of expanding to Hong Kong and certain websites being blocked and so on. That obviously caused a huge furore because also part of the Hong Kong's role as an international business hub and financial hub is based on that exchange of information and the kind of free internet as well. So these things are absolutely essential if Hong Kong, in my view, is to prosper, is to grow in the way that we want to see it.
Well, another thing that some business people are concerned, of course they dare not say it, is the case about Hutchison, Cheung Kong, with the sale of all these port facilities. And some people will say, oh, it's just business, isn't it? But others will say, no, it's not. It's national security.
Yeah, I think everything can be national security if you want it to be.
Yeah.
We're also more broadly seeing a trend of everything is political globally. Politicization of families, of absolutely every aspect of our life. And yeah, absolutely, this was an issue in Hong Kong where a business decision did end up being politicized.
Yeah, so I feel very sorry for the journalists. Is it very difficult for them to operate? As your survey found out, they are afraid about the possible impact on their own safety and the safety of their families. So you're just doing a job, and suddenly you find yourself arrested and put into prison. It's very sad, isn't it?
It's something that journalists continue to monitor very, very closely. I think when you are a journalist in most fields, there is a certain amount of maybe risk built in, right? you go into the profession knowing that. Things are continuing the ground is shifting. A lot of societal change has happened in a period of 5 years. I think a lot of people are, just my personal take, dealing with a certain amount of whiplash because the ground has moved quite a bit and people are trying to figure out where it will settle in Hong Kong society. And so when an issue like HKJA's reports around journalism harassment comes out, then people take note. When 2 journalists are convicted of a crime for 11 articles that they've published that are deemed to have seditious intentions, people take notice. But that ground is continuing to shift. And so that was the first sedition case, which was convicted in over half a century. What's going to happen next? Who else? What are the other trials? Are these trials going to go to the Court of Appeal, to the Court of Final Appeal? These are things that we continue to monitor. I would say, Emily, absolutely, it's not easy to be a journalist in Hong Kong, but show me a jurisdiction where it's easy to be a journalist in 2025.
I know, it's terrible.
I mean, with press freedom, we could be talking about the challenges for business models in journalism globally and the threats posed by AI, and go on. We can go on and on that.
Yeah. Well, at the beginning of our interview, we talked about Keith Richburg and that controversy at that time about the FCC deciding not to do the Human Rights Award. I guess nobody ever said, "Hey, let's pick it up. Let's do it now." So human rights is no longer something that is worth handing out awards, isn't it?
Absolutely would disagree with that, Emily. Like I say, the last 2 years, I've wanted to run an FCC where we can fulfill our mission today, but still be around to do it tomorrow. Because I believe that Hong Kong journalism and Hong Kong society is better for the FCC being open. Now, I wasn't on the board or involved in the organization of the club, the running of the club, when that decision was made.
But you're aware of development.
But I'm aware of what happened, and I'm sure at the time, whether I agree with it or not, I'm sure at the time that they were making that same calculation. If we do this, is this the hill that we decide to die on? What is the benefit of us doing this to make a point, to make a stand? To your question earlier, what change would it actually affect? And then what would be the benefits of us being able to stay, speak out on other issues, have our training for journalists, and so on and so forth? They decided at that time that the best thing to do was to move the awards offshore. And the awards are still happening. Arizona State University is still doing it. It has partners in Asia. I think the FCC in Taipei, the FCC in Thailand, which are not affiliated with the FCC Hong Kong, the separate organizations, are helping to run it. So the awards are being given out. It's just in Hong Kong jurisdiction, the decision was made it would break the law.
Who are I haven't been following it. Who have they given the awards to? Not to Hong Kong journalists. Nothing to do with Hong Kong at all.
I haven't been following who the awards have been given out to in the last year or so. I can tell you, I know for a fact that some of the judges are still in Hong Kong. I won't name names, but yeah, it's just that the FCC decided at that time to not do that. It made that calculation so that it continued to do its other work. And it's a heavy responsibility to bear. At what point do you make that calculation? That it's better that we maybe hold back here for the sake of being able to do other things which we think are of value.
Yeah.
At what point, when we're walking that tightrope, which you walk exceptionally well, Emily, you must have
I haven't been arrested. That's why I walk well.
You must have an insane core. You've been walking a tightrope for decades.
People have been asking me almost every day.
How do you? You're a master of that. But walking that, at one point the day might come where the space to operate has shrunk so much that actually the FCC still having its bright lights and its doors open is just us being a patsy.
That day's come for my party.
At what point?
That's why.
That's the decision we make, because the FCC is a canary in the coal mine.
Yeah.
And the argument that I make is that the FCC still being in this historic building in the middle of Central is a great thing for Hong Kong, because it's a very visible demonstration of the differences between Hong Kong and mainland China.
The lease, the lease has come. Is it? When would the lease run out?
End of this year.
Have you heard anything good or bad?
So Just a quick
Because
recap.
the last time it was also the lease.
Yeah. Just a quick recap for the audience. So the FCC has had a 7-year lease in the past. That was
And
changed,
then it was changed to
2.5
3.
years ago to a 3-year tenancy agreement, which
Yeah.
had a clause around the national security law, which was widely reported at the time.
Yeah.
We have let it be known that we wish to stay in the building. We sent an
Yeah.
official letter to the Government Property Agency, which is our landlord. We've informally heard back. We've yet to formally hear back. Even in the days before NSL, Emily, we didn't get our new lease until a few weeks before the old one expired. So we don't expect to hear anything until December.
No, but have you heard anyone, like last time it was CY Leung, who said you people should be thrown out? Have you heard anybody now saying that you should not have your lease renewed?
Well, no one has yet, but I'm sure they will in the public conversations between now and the lease renewal, particularly when it comes closer to the period. I think, ultimately, the decision as to whether or not to renew the lease on the Foreign Correspondents Club in a really, really prominent building in Central will be a political one. And, what the political winds will blow in 6 months' time, we don't yet know. What we do is continue to make the case that we are an apolitical organization that stands for one issue, which is press freedom, which is guaranteed in the basic law. And we believe that also press freedom, that free flow of information, is also vital for the success, the ongoing prosperity of Hong Kong. And we ain't no threat to you. We are not a political organization.
No threat. Hey, so when Keith was here, because he was a teacher,
Yeah.
but you are not a teacher, but I
No.
still put this question to you because there may be some young people watching, and some may even want to become a journalist. What advice would you give to them? Say, don't do it. No.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Train yourself up on multimedia, on video, on social media, on artificial
AI?
intelligence, because
Yeah.
this is all what is coming.
Yeah.
Be prepared for change. I think change is a constant. Most professions have had a huge amount of change since the dawn of the internet, but few more, I would say, than journalism. And absolutely do it. It is an incredibly rewarding profession and one that you would feel a lot of professional satisfaction from. I want to ask you a question, Emily.
Yes.
You were a journalist for many years. You were the
Yes.
chair of HKJA.
Yes.
Do you miss it?
No.
Why?
Well, because I chose politics. I
Yeah.
don't look back.
Yeah?
Yeah. But of course, I think journalism, press freedom is very important.
What did you learn as a journalist? What skills, what mindset did you learn as a journalist, which you then took into politics?
Asking questions, having the freedom and the courage to stand up, put up your hand and ask questions. That's why every time-
Oratory, which you're very good at as well.
No, that's why every time when I come to the FCC forum, I'm always the first person to put up my hand to ask questions.
I know, Emily, and if I'm on the stage moderating, you're always going to be the first person I will call on, because you're always going to ask some absolute fire.
Yeah, no, but very few people like to ask questions. That's another thing that I find quite disappointing at the FCC thing. People are very, very, they do ask questions, but very tame questions. And but that's Hong Kong.
Well, my take is you're going to get spicier questions at the FCC than you're going to get almost any other place in Hong Kong.
Wow.
That's not a whole lot I can offer you, Emily,
Yeah.
but it's something.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we work towards, to hold that space.
Well-
When no one else is doing it, the FCC will still do it. The Article 23 panel, which you spoke about, being an example. Issuing statements which ask questions of the government being another. These are things that we took for granted before. These are things that are different from the norm, but we will continue to do them because we see the value in doing them.
Who is the next president of the FCC?
The next president has been announced earlier this week as Morgan Davis.
And where is he from?
Morgan is a she. She's from the US. She works for IFR, and she's a financial journalist.
I see. So maybe I can invite her to come on.
She'd absolutely invite her to come on. Give her a few weeks to get her feet wet and get her legs under the desk. But yes, you absolutely should.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much, Lee.
Thank you, Emily. It's been a pleasure.
You will still be on the board anyway, although you step down, isn't it? You're not stepping down completely.
Yeah, I'll be a continuity candidate on the backbenches of the Board of Governors just to help out with the lease renewal and some upcoming trials that are going on.
Okay, thank you, Lee. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.